Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ted Alexandro Show. This is a very special Thanksgiving edition. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope you are giving thanks wherever you are, wherever you may be. No matter the origins of this holiday, the genocidal origins of the holiday, and what it truly represents, we do try to shift that focus to our own gratitude, right? That's very much what America's about anyway. Just push aside the negativity, push aside reality, and just do a gratitude mantra, and all will be well. So that is what today is about, friends. Grab yourself a drumstick, dip it in some mash, then some gravy. Swing it back to the sweet potatoes. And then get to work. Or if you are vegan, the tofurkey. Dip it in the not necessarily butter. And then swoop it back around to the... I can't believe it's not marshmallow sweet potatoes. You get the point, folks. Distract yourself by eating is the goal today. I am grateful. I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for this show and episode, I believe, 35. I never know for sure. You may know better than I. But today is special because we are shifting, and we are going to be coming to you in new ways. We will not be going live. We were going live every Monday and Thursday. That was Thursday more recently because I was moving, as you know, to an undisclosed location in the Northeast, Connecticut. So with all of the moving and the uncertainty, it's difficult to go live every Thursday with an 11-month-old. So instead of going live, we will be recording and coming to you every Thursday and perhaps more. And there will be continuing bonus content on Patreon, patreon.com/Ted Alexandro. So look for that as well. So folks, it's going to be all the fun that you've come to know and love, but the live element for now will be put aside so that I can still come to you and still record and still have the best guests and all of that kind of stuff going forward. So just know that the show will continue to come to you in exciting ways, but we will not be live streaming for now. Like I said, maybe down the road we can revisit that. But for now, we're going to be recording and coming to you in that way. So, friends, if you are a comedy fan, I'm assuming you are. I personally am not. But you may be. No doubt you're aware of the latest Dave Chappelle tremors in the comedy verse. Lots of them lately. But most recently, Dave Chappelle put out about an 18-minute set that he did recently titled Unforgiven. And the basic idea of the piece was how he was wronged by Comedy Central for his work on the Chappelle Show, was not compensated, and continues to not be properly remunerated for the work that he did on the Chappelle Show. So as always with Dave, he's always been a master at creating moments, creating headlines, creating talk. He is in another category. Comedy is here, and Chappelle, he's operating in his own universe. So it's been interesting to see. He put out 2 specials during the pandemic. The first was the one that addressed George Floyd's murder. And he put that out, and that created ripples. What was that? Was that called 846? The length of time that the officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck. And I thought that was artfully done and well done and beautifully done and as only Chappelle could. Now, he put out this Unforgiven on on Thanksgiving week, the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, I guess. Unless I realized late, but I think it was on Tuesday. And I just question the timing of putting out something where you're relitigating something that happened in your career 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. During a pandemic when people are like struggling and everything ranging from being infected and being ill and dying, or family members being infected or dying, or obviously plenty of essential workers and people that are on the front lines. And then, of course, lots of people who are losing their jobs or, their livelihood has been impacted directly. Their ability to earn a living has been impacted. They've lost jobs. They've lost hours. They've lost health care. They can't pay rent. They can't pay a mortgage. They've lost their home. All sorts of hardships have befallen many, many people. So I thought it an odd choice, and especially against the backdrop of Thanksgiving week, to relitigate the fact that Dave was fucked over by Comedy Central with his contract. Now, I'm not in any way dismissing that or arguing that. It's like, welcome to showbiz. If you got a deal for a show, you got fucked. That's for sure. So all of the things that he was talking about with regards to showbiz, with regards to the chummy nature, the relationships between management, agents, network executives, how he compared it to 3-Card Monte, how they're all in on it. I've certainly felt that, where those relationships are long-standing and will continue long after you come and go. Those people have jobs in show business. You are the product that they're pitching. Hey, we have new potato chips with mesquite. Do you have space on your shelf for these new potato chips? You're just the new product that they're pitching to their buddies. I always remember the first 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes of every meeting, that when I was pitching stuff or when it was getting to know certain executives or certain networks, and my manager and or agents would take me in, the first 5 or 10 minutes of every meeting would be them catching up on the Hamptons or the family or the vacation they went on or, the boat that they have, or, it was this universe of privilege and wealth and connections. And then almost sometimes as an afterthought, oh yeah, and this guy, I'm not from that world. I don't know that world. I don't care to, quite honestly. So it was off-putting to me to have to sit, and I would imagine for Chappelle too, and further, as a young black man, to be sitting very likely as the only black face in the room. Who knows? Maybe there were others, but it would not surprise me if that were the case, that he was the only black person there. So I 100% understand his disdain for the nature of the business, the 3-card Monte nature of the business that he so brilliantly outlined. But as he said, he was a desperate 28-year-old expectant father and was being offered his own show by a network, by a cable network, Comedy Central. So he did what everyone would do in that position. He signed a shitty deal that gave them the rights to the show, the rights to his name, the Chappelle Show, the rights to all of that in perpetuity throughout the universe. Anyone in show business is well acquainted with that type of language in contracts. That kind of shit is always there in perpetuity, forever. So Dave took Comedy Central to task for doing exactly what corporations do. They hold all the power and they take advantage of people. Now, Dave got out actually on the good side of things. He became a household name. He became a wealthy man because of Chappelle's show on Comedy Central. Now, that's not to say that he didn't get taken advantage of and it wasn't a shitty deal, because it was, and he did. But it's like, who hasn't gotten fucked on their first contract, if you're lucky enough even to get to that point, right? Like every band obviously talks about how you get fucked on your first contract and sometimes your second or even third. So I felt it was questionable to position yourself as a victim. This guy is, by any metric, at the top of the field of comedy. Artistically, financially. He's a legend. So, to put out this special or this set, it wasn't comedy, it was him kind of airing a personal gripe, valid though it may be, calling out. I mean, if you want to zoom out, he was taking capitalism to task, but he wasn't doing it on behalf of workers. He was doing it on behalf of Dave Chappelle. There's no context of like, yeah, this is what has been in the zeitgeist for years now. People talking about a system of the haves and the have-nots, wealth disparity, corporate power, and kind of the inability of workers to fight back in any significant way. Now, Dave has the advantage of being exceptional. So in capitalism, the exception can certainly, the gifted one, which he is, can certainly ascend and rise and occupy rare space to the point. That's what capitalism is, right? You can negotiate then, as he did with Netflix years later, for a contract that gave him, I think, $60 million or, I know it was in the neighborhood of what he walked away from. He walked away from $50 million from Comedy Central. And then years later, Poetic Justice, and I thought this was the end of the story. I thought that was, if you're shooting the movie, that's a great ending. That he stood by his principles and ideals and walked away from the $50 million because it didn't sit right with him. It was not on his terms. He felt people were laughing for the wrong reasons, from what I understand, and he walked away from the $50 million contract that Comedy Central was offering after the first however many seasons. Was it 2, 3 of Chappelle? 2, I guess. So then, lo and behold, the man stands by his principles, his ideals, leaves a ton of money on the table, becomes a folk hero, and years later gets even more money from Netflix to do a series of specials. So then Dave goes out of his way to praise Netflix because he said, I don't want you streaming my show. It makes me feel badly. And Netflix honored that, and they pulled Chappelle's show. But to me, it's absent the context of Netflix is negotiating with legend status Dave Chappelle, who is 47, 46, whatever he is. Comedy Central was negotiating with unknown 28-year-old Dave Chappelle. So this is the way business is done. Of course, Netflix is going to want to appease and maintain good relations with the comedy icon of our time, Dave Chappelle. So to go out of his way to praise a company who treats him, they treat him the way companies treat commodities that can make them money. And Comedy Central treated him the way they treat everyone, which is as disposable. I think he said at one point, what do I need you for? I think HBO, he was speaking about HBO when he pitched them Chappelle's show. I think the quote was, what do I need you for? As a side note, I pitched a sketch show. Hollis James and we had pitched we pitched Comedy Central a sketch show in I guess it was probably early 2000s, I want to say, called Twisted. Twist Ted. Not clever. And I remember the Comedy Central executive saying, well, how is this different from Chappelle's show? Like, you're doing sketches, like Chappelle introduces the sketches. So I said, well, I wouldn't be averse to Chappelle introducing the sketches on my show. Needless to say, Twisted never went anywhere at Comedy Central or elsewhere. But just to underscore that, like, in comedy, in showbiz, like, we've all been through countless meetings, countless business situations, trying to navigate something where you get to do anything, where you get to do a job. Now, Dave was in the business, as he says in this Unforgiven, from the time he was 14. And he hit the ground running as a stand-up. He was very gifted, as he said, very poised, and really kind of hit the ground running. And then a few years later took New York by storm. I remember when I was there in the early 90s, he was already well established. But I just, the main feeling that I took away from this special was kind of disappointment that that Dave is kind of myopically focused on Dave. You know, he's focused on his own legend, his own situation, righting the wrongs of this contract that he signed 20-something years ago. I mean, you know, everyone signs shitty contracts. Everyone, if you're in show business, you've signed a shitty contract, you've gotten taken advantage of. And the hope is that you get to a point where you sign a good contract, or you have more power, you have more kind of ownership and more agency to dictate the terms, which he does now, and which is why Netflix does what he asks. You know, so in a way, it's almost it's sad to me, or disappointing, that he would still fixate on, and I get it, because they're still making money off the show that he made, which was such an iconic touchstone, a legendary show that, you know, that will last. So it's got to be upsetting, infuriating. But, you know, for a guy, like I said, who is among the elite, the most wealthy, the most acclaimed, by any metric, the most successful comedian of our time, an enduring legend, to fixate on your first contract where you got fucked, like, and especially during a pandemic when a lot of people are struggling, during Thanksgiving week, you know, to kind of to plead your case and to make yourself the victim, I think is misguided. I think it's a miscalculation. Now, a lot of people say, like, you know, everybody should rally to Dave's cause and all of this kind of stuff. You know, some people, there is the cult of celebrity too. You know, as I said, Chappelle's, he transcends comedy. He's in that rarefied celebrity air. But I was disappointed. I was disappointed that, you know, to me it seemed out of touch. It seemed out of touch. For comedy, you really have to have your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the world. What's the zeitgeist? Where are we at? You're kind of operating from a sense of, where are we? You know, where are we? What's the tone? And that just struck me as tone deaf to position himself as a victim, as being wronged. And again, I'm not discounting that the contract was shitty. He did get fucked. But that show, you know, did everything that he could have hoped, other than, you know, the contract that he put his name on could have been a better contract. But it was not. It was not. And also what I found disappointing and upsetting was, and this has been like the last couple specials, not the George Floyd one, I don't think, but the last couple prior to that, like, he's still kind of doing the lazy punchline thing where he's referring to women as bitches. He talked about the Me Too bitches. You know? Like, look, I'm 51 years old. Chappelle's a few years younger than me. We're grown men. I don't see the need to consistently refer to women as bitches, punchline or otherwise. I don't think it's funny. I think it's kind of maybe a kid's thing to say, you know. It's a young man's lazy kind of punchline to refer to women almost every time he brings up a woman. Right? The Dominican bitch, he called her I don't know what he said, a crazy Dominican bitch or whatever, but then he talked about women, the women that had an issue with show business. He said the Me Too bitches, they have an issue with show business for the way it fucks. The monster, I think he referred, right? They have a problem. The Me Too bitches have a problem with the monster for the way it fucks. And I have a problem with the monster for the way it eats. It's all the same thing. I don't think it is the same thing. And I think that's problematic. First of all, to call them the Me Too bitches is reductive and dismissive and immediately makes them a joke, which they are not. They are human beings who suffered from this monster that he's talking about. And the issue is that these women have is not with the way it fucks. It's that they got raped or sexually assaulted or in some way abused. Some form of sexual crime was committed against them. That's not the way they fuck. That is an assault, a rape, a crime that is imposed against their will. That's a very different thing from signing your name to a contract that, in retrospect or even in the moment, you recognize to be shitty. So the fact that Dave Chappelle is 20 years later still upset, angry, feels taken advantage of about a contract that he signed. And then to continually be dismissive of Me Too, of women who were raped, sexually assaulted, taken advantage of. And to somehow not grasp the severity of that. You know, they didn't sign a contract to be raped or to be assaulted. So to me, that's disappointing too, that he puts that on the same footing. You know, that he calls them the Me Too bitches. These are not issues to me that should be made into a punchline, and the women should not be referred to as bitches, you know? And there are portions of the comedy world that are like, you know, you don't have any sense of humor. Why can't we just call someone bitches? You know, you don't get it, or whatever. In some way that it puts me out of touch, or that I don't have a sense of humor. It's like, no, maybe you don't get the severity of the situation where you are using language that is dehumanizing. And people that have very bravely, I mean, he made it a point to say, I'm the only one with the balls to come out and talk about this. Well, don't you think it takes balls, although it's the wrong word to use? Don't you think it takes immense courage and integrity to step up and say, this man sexually assaulted me, this man raped me, this person who was in power? And isn't it interesting that so many of these people dismiss things that happened in terms of the realm of rape or sexual assault, Me Too? They're so quick to dismiss these things that happened years ago. Why didn't they speak up at the time? But yet when Dave Chappelle brings up a shitty contract that he signed, he agreed to, 20 years ago. Everyone's like, yeah, boycott, yes, Chappelle. Yes. And these women that were raped or sexually assaulted, like that was 20 years ago. What, like, let it go. Like, why didn't you speak up then? What are you trying to get out of it? It's fascinating, the disconnect. So, I mean, I say this as a fan of Dave Chappelle's, have been from the time I started doing comedy. Even though he's younger than I am, he was in the game before I was, and you know, he was someone that I watched many nights around New York. So, to me, it is fascinating. Sometimes I think Dave misses the larger context because he is kind of myopically focused on his own situation or his own legend. You know, to say that he's the only one with the balls to talk about the industry, I mean, he's also one of the few who's wealthy enough and situated to say anything about the industry that he wouldn't fear for his career. Obviously he didn't say anything when he was 27, 28, because he wasn't in that position then. So, you know, I mean, as someone who organized against the comedy clubs, not against, I mean, but organized for a pay raise. I organized comedians on 2 occasions for a pay raise for comedians. So, you know, to me, I do take a little bit of issue with him talking about who has balls and who doesn't have balls. When on 2 occasions we organized for a pay raise in the New York clubs for something that benefited everyone. And as far as I can tell, what Dave is doing by bringing up a shitty contract that he signed, he's not taking on the system. He's not taking on the corporate, kind of paradigm. He's trying to leverage his own platform, his own celebrity, to get paid for himself for what he did, and, you know, good on him. That's fine. But I think he's missing the mark in several ways, and that's disappointing. It's disappointing for someone that I really hold in high regard, high esteem, as an artist, as a thinker, as a comedian, and I hope that he can maybe broaden his perspective a little bit. You know, in the years ahead, because I would hate for someone that gifted to kind of get lost in his own legend or lost in things that don't really matter. When, you know, I think as a great comedian, ultimately you can be a voice for the people. You can be a voice for the culture writ large. You know, he has all the tools and the wisdom to do that if he chooses to go that route. But I've seen in recent years more of an inclination for him to kind of cultivate his own legend, and in this case, kind of cultivate, talk about how he was taken advantage of, by people in power. And ironically, that's something that he has been dismissive of. He's been a supporter of Louis C.K. vocally in at least one of his specials. So to me, on the one hand, that you can talk about the Me Too bitches being that they have issues with the monster the same way he does. I just think he's missing a lot of context, and it's disappointing. As my wife is fond of saying, you're too smart to be acting that stupid. She doesn't say that to me. Thank God, not yet. I'm sure it's coming. But she often says that about people that are trying to get away with shit, or that are saying things that don't add up. You're too smart to be acting that stupid. And I think Dave is missing some very important points for someone who's an artist and a thinker. Ideally, I think you zoom out and you see the large picture. And if you are someone who is someone who thinks about systems and someone who thinks about the world and the ways that we can improve the world, and maybe this is maybe he considers this a way that he can help the world. I don't know, but it does strike me as though he's trying to help primarily himself. He's trying to get paid for the work that he did, and trying to get some sort of payment for this show that became legendary, that he feels that he was abused by the business and that he was taken advantage of. So that was a lot of talk on the old social media, friends. A lot of talk on the old social media about Dave Chappelle putting out this new piece, Unforgiven. I think it's exclusively on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken. So, hey, hope he gets paid. I hope he gets what he wants. 'Cause obviously, fuck Comedy Central and all these corporations. I mean, we all got fucked. Everyone who, like I said, who has signed a contract has gotten taken advantage of. But now Dave is a legend, and he can speak out, and he can air his grievances. And that is what he has done. I have issues with some of the way it's been done and some of the things he's said. But that's what makes the world go round, friends. So happy Thanksgiving. It's a roundabout way for me to say to you and yours, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you are in a place to be grateful and to recognize the many blessings in your life, be they family or friends or your situation overall. I certainly am grateful, despite the chaos of the past 9 months or so, to have recently moved, to have our first house, is reason enough for us to kill a bird. No, it's going to be a tofurkey. It's reason enough for us to celebrate. And though we won't be gathering with family because we don't want anyone to die, we're being very serious. How serious are you being? Do you have a house full of people right now? Maybe you do. We are foregoing gathering, especially with the spike in COVID all over the country. And my wife being pregnant, we're being extra cautious. So we're grateful, despite the fact that we are not with family. We would love to be with family, especially on Thanksgiving, especially for the holidays. But try to be smart for the short term, cautious for the short term, and in the long term, everything will hopefully work out. All right, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, one and all. Nothing but love to each and every one of you. And as I said, going forward, we will still be coming out every Thursday. Very excited to be continuing to put out the shows. And there will be, as I said, bonus content coming on Patreon, patreon.com/Ted Alexandro. And as always, please hit the subscription button and the notification bell and the like button. For the love of God, like what you're seeing and indicate that with a thumbs up. All right, everybody, be well. Until next time, happy Thanksgiving.